Never did I ever think I would be coming on a camera and saying that Pep Guardiola has been playing a 5-4 formation in a game, but that is exactly what happened in the Arsenal game on the weekend, and I genuinely believe that Manchester City are going through a stylistic change, or maybe not a stylistic change, but a mentality approach to football matches, which we have never seen under Pep Guardiola across his entire career, and I feel like this is actually a part of the genius of Pep Guardiola. He is adapting to the situation at Manchester City right now. It was clear in the first couple of games, in the Brighton game and in the Tottenham game, that we were pressing way too high up the field. We were leaving ourselves massively exposed and we were conceding some really soft goals. And what we've done since we've come back from the international break is, I mean, it's astonishing to me. I didn't really think that actually Pep Guardiola would take this approach, but we have completely shifted from the high line, ultra high pressing football that we were doing in the first few games of the season, and we've actually switched to a completely opposite style, which is actually defending a little bit deeper, protecting our box, protecting our goalkeeper, and then hitting on the transition with the weapons that we have. And look, I've got to say, this was a change that was needed. When you look at the Manchester City squad right now, I don't think that it's built to play the way that we previously were able to play and dominate football matches. However, when you look at the assets that we've got in this Manchester City side at the moment, I think it's perfectly built for the way that we've been playing in the last few games. Because gone are the days where we have an Ederson in goal, a 11th man in possession who is as good on the ball as any other player pretty much on the football pitch. Ederson's passing range was absolutely outstanding, and because of the uniqueness of his game, it always gave us the advantage in possession. However, now when you look at the way that we play, we don't have that advantage in possession because Gigi Donnarumma is not as talented as Ederson on the ball. He's alright, he's good enough, but he's not an Ederson, and therefore we've had to adapt to Gigi Donnarumma's style of play, and that is his massive frame, being able to claim crosses into the box, balls into the box, and on top of that as well, making absolutely unbelievable stops. And I feel like that is a change that was needed at Manchester City, and I feel like as well, we are massively adapting not only to Gigi Donnarumma, but also some of the other players we've got in this team. Because I think one thing that became very obvious in the first few games of the season is that defensively, playing that high line, we just don't have the pace in this back line to be able to play that high. Now, I do think that that has marginally changed with Gvardiol coming into the setup, with Kusanov coming into the setup, because they are absolutely rapid in transitions and can get back in time. However, Ruben Diaz and John Stones are very slow. I mean, they are looking very leggy at the moment, and I just don't feel comfortable pressing that high up the pitch with those in the back line. And therefore, being able to drop off a few yards gives our defense at least a chance. It gives us a chance at being able to defend these type of situations. And in the Arsenal game, in the Manchester United game, and in the Napoli game, we look so much more solid defensively than we have looked at any point throughout the season. And that is because of the defensive approach that we have taken. And I know some people are going to criticize Manchester City. Some people are going to say, this is not the Manchester City way. This is not the Pep Guardiola way. The facts are, Pep Guardiola was 2 losses from 3 games in the Premier League. We had to adapt. We had to do something. And I credit Pep Guardiola because he has made a change, which personally I thought was needed. And I think we've been absolutely outstanding in the last few games. I think our performances have been really good. Even the game on the weekend, I didn't think Manchester City had that in us against Arsenal. Now, don't get me wrong, I was not happy with the way that we played in possession. Do I think Pep Guardiola wants to play the way we did against Arsenal? No, I don't. I think he wants us to be much better in possession of the football. However, being able to dig in and stay focused. Obviously, I know we conceded very late on in the game, but have that desire and that fight and that grit in that performance away at the Emirates at a tough ground when you're suffering a lot. And the thing is, in that Arsenal game, there was a side to this Manchester City team which I've not quite seen before. I don't think I've seen that level of spirit, that level of fight, desire for quite some time. I'd say well over a year at this point. And it was really refreshing to see. Now, obviously, we didn't get to see the football, which we've been used to seeing. And I don't think we were anywhere near good enough in possession of the ball. Even Pep Guardiola admitted that after the game. But having that defensive approach, being disciplined, fighting for every ball, and, you know, putting together that defensive performance where realistically we limited Arsenal to half chances at best overall, I think was a really admirable performance, and even though we didn't play at our best, I think that it showed us a lot in terms of what we can do over the course of the season. And look, when I say Pep Guardiola's adapting and he's becoming a bit more defensive in his approach, what I don't mean is that we're going to play like that every week. I really don't think we're going to play like that every week. We are going to look to have more of the ball than our opponents more often than not. However, what it has shown us is that we're able to survive, we're able to adapt to games, we're able to be defensively solid, dig in, sit in our own box if we need to, see out a game. Now, obviously, as I said, we've not seen out this game against Arsenal. They did manage to score. It came from a mistake from our backline, a moment, a lapse of concentration. However, it showed us something, that performance, against one of the best teams in the country, and we limited them to half chances. And I think if we do that against sides when we suffer in games, I think we can ride out games, and it's an effective style of football. People obviously always talk about teams that sit in defensive, I personally think that it's an aspect of football that if you can't dominate the ball, if you're not playing at your best, make sure you're defensively strong. And Pep Guardiola and this Manchester City team seem to have adopted that mentality, and I think that that is the right mentality for this crop of players. Because when you look throughout the team, I think we've got a whole load of players that are set up for transitional football. Jeremy Doku is a transitional football player. The pace that he's got, the ability to beat a man, he can open up a game, especially if there are men forward, players are out of position in transitions. Jeremy Doku is one of the best players to be able to take advantage of those moments and open up games. You've got Erling Haaland, who's got that ridiculous pace, and we saw it against Arsenal. That transition with Erling Haaland was absolutely deadly. The power, the pace, and the clinical finishing of Erling Haaland proved to be just too much for Arsenal to handle. Reinders as well, he's another one. He's another one that is also good in transitions. You can tell he's an athletic player. He can get up and down the pitch, and we saw that on the transitions as well. Carries the ball quite well. So he's another player which is set up to play transitional football. And I'm personally a big fan of it, and I'm happy that Pep Guardiola has adapted to the current squad that we have, because I think for a long time now we've been playing football that maybe isn't adapted to the actual footballers that we've got in the team. And look, do I want to see Manchester City play the way we did against Arsenal every single game? Absolutely not. I don't want to see us in our own box defending for the majority of the game. I actually thought we were quite poor in possession. However, in big games, when you need to hold on in big moments against really good teams, like your Real Madrids in the Champions League, maybe even a team like Barcelona, Arsenal, Liverpool, these teams are going to make you suffer at some point in games. And what you want to be able to do is make sure that when you're suffering, when you're not being able to get on the ball, you're not able to have the game the way you want it, you're able to dig in, be defensively strong, and see out those waves of pressure that the opposition are putting on you. And I think that that was a really good display from Manchester City, that we have the capabilities to do that. I thought Donnarumma was exceptional. I thought the back line overall was really good. Erling Haaland contributing defensively. We look really strong, big, authoritative, defending set pieces. Rodri, of course, was a big part of that as well. I thought he was really good in the midfield. And I think overall, we've got a really good side to be able to be flexible in these type of games and be a little bit more defensive, a little bit more pragmatic in games and being able to see out results and stuff like that. And I think that's an important part of football. And people got to remember, we had this side to us in the treble-winning team. We didn't dominate every minute of every game as the treble-winning team. Now, obviously, we were a very possession-heavy side. We did like to dominate teams. But I remember quite a few games where we had to sit in, we had to defend. We had Grealish on the left-hand side as a defensive left winger. We had Bernardo Silva on the right-hand side as a defensive right winger. And we had to dig in certain games and transition and win games in moments. And that is what I'm seeing from this Manchester City side, and to a bigger extreme against Arsenal on the weekend, granted. But I like what I'm seeing. And personally for me, if we are to play a little bit more conservative across the rest of the season, I'm happy. Because one thing's for sure, it wasn't good enough previously. The way that we were playing, the way we were getting exposed in certain games, I personally think we were too soft. We were conceding too many cheap goals. The Tottenham game specifically, and the Brighton game as well, to be fair. But the Tottenham game, the cheapness of the goals that we gave away, when we gifted that victory to Tottenham, we were so weak, so fragile in that game. And that's the one word you don't want said about your football team: fragile, weak. You want to be strong. You want to be able to deal with adversity. And that is what I'm starting to see from this City side in the last few games under Pep Guardiola. So yeah, I'm actually quite optimistic for the rest of the season. Am I putting us as favourites to go win the Premier League title? Absolutely not. We're 8 points now behind Liverpool. But I've got a good feeling about cup competitions. I think we can definitely grab one of the domestic cups. I think we're good enough to potentially even challenge for the Champions League this season, especially as the squad gets to learn each other more. We get to build our best squad, those relationships throughout the season, get some players back for the back end of the season. I think we could make a really good deep run in the Champions League as well. So, you know, I'm confident about the rest of the season. I think that this City side has a strength to them. It has a backbone to them. And I'm really, really pleased with what I've seen from the City side on the weekend against Arsenal, and also in the Napoli and the Manchester United games from a defensive perspective. As I said, I think we've got to be better in those big games than we were on the weekend in terms of in possession. But when you're not having it your way, when you're playing poor, when you can't get on the ball, make sure you're defensively solid. Make sure you do not concede. And that's what I saw from this Manchester City side on the weekend. And it's given me a lot of hope for where we can go in the future. So Pep Guardiola has adapted to this squad. He's adapted to the situation. He's become a bit more of a pragmatic manager than we've ever seen him in the past. And I'm very, very happy for it. Let me know what you guys think of Manchester City in the comments below. Are you happy with the performance on the weekend? I saw some mixed reactions from some City fans. Saw some people saying, you know, really good defensive performance. Some people saying really poor from City. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm happy with the performance on the weekend, despite obviously being poor in possession. I'm happy with the defensive solidity, the grit, the determination, the fight that we're showing. And I think it shows good signs for the rest of the season. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below of Pep Guardiola's little bit of change in the way that he's approaching games. But, yeah, big results in the last few games. Obviously, wish we hung on for the Arsenal game. But what can you do? We move on to Burnley on the weekend to try and get 3 points in the Premier League and claw back some sort of title fight.